time for Lykken on Lending.
Welcome, everybody. Good to have you with us.
Welcome to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update providing up-to-the-minute information on interest rates, loan programs, and hot industry news, all related to the mortgage industry. Brought to you by Transformational Mortgage Solutions. To participate in today's program, our guest call-in line is 646-716-4972. Now here's your host of Lykken on Lending, David Lykken.
Let's begin.
Listeners, I am so excited to sit here and share with you something that I think is so special and unusual that's happening in our industry. And I've known about Candor. I mean, yes, they just became a sponsor, but we were excited about them and what they were doing before that, because what they are able to do for lenders to keep risk out, mitigate risk. And in this market, we need to do a better job of that. So sitting here with me is Tom Showalter, the founder of Candor. And we've got two special guests that you've invited to join us here, Tom.
Certainly. Thank you, David. Appreciate the introduction. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you.
On my left is Sara Knochel, who's the CEO of Candor's Data and Analytics Division.
Wow.
And beside her is Tom Booker, who's our Chief Strategy Officer. And Sarah's in charge of taking our post-close products to market. And Tom Booker's in charge of taking our point-of-sale products to market.
Okay, very good.
New space.
New space, yeah. Tom, your story about how you started Candor, why you started it, is so fascinating. We've been sitting here talking for the last hour, and I'm trying to figure out how to pack this all into a very 20, 30-minute interview here. What is the basis for you starting and founding Candor?
I took a look at how mortgages were made. I took a look at how underwriting decisions were made. I took a look at how data about those decisions was captured or not captured. It just made a commitment to myself that we have to do a better job. I did all of this initial analysis about how mortgages were made in the early 2004, 2005 timeframe. And I come from the aerospace industry, and as I've joked with you, David, I looked at how mortgages were made, and I said, no, if we made airplanes the same way we make mortgages, I'd never fly again. I came to that conclusion, and I said, okay, we have to do a better job at making mortgages. We have to do a better job at underwriting them. I made a commitment to myself that I would find a way to create a technology that could really, truly make the highest quality underwriting decision and enable every mortgage executive to have that technology at their disposal. And I want to make that decisioning technology so powerful that it could handle every aspect of making a mortgage, every aspect, every decision related to a mortgage. It could do that. And I also wanted to make it so that it would capture the reasons why it was deciding what it was deciding and save that for posterity. After the loan was made, look back and see what it really was and why. So I made that decision to figure out how to create a technology that would make the highest quality mortgage underwriting decisions. So we set out to do that.
The Tom Showalter quotables, there's so many that we're going to be discovering in this interview. But one of them was, you said, I came from an aerospace background. I was thinking certainly mortgages cannot be as complicated as aerospace. And you found it was just the opposite.
Let's work out.
We had that captured, but just in a nutshell, explain that one more time, which almost gets into where I want to go with obstacles. But share this.
Sure. So when you're analyzing an aerospace system,
right,
every potential failure and every potential outcome is known. You can foresee it, and therefore you can lay it out, you can estimate its likelihood, you can create a probability distribution. All those things are known. So even though it's quite complicated, because you have aerospace systems that have 1 million components, and they all interact, so that matrix is pretty complicated. But by and large, everything in it is a known effect. There's no unknowns there. In the mortgage space, there's easily over 1 billion outcomes in any mortgage underwriting. I know that's a hard number for people to swallow, but it's not that hard to prove. In fact, I'm actually toning down the number of outcomes, but the outcomes are huge. But the other problem with the mortgage is that some of the outcomes are unknown. You don't know what you're going to encounter. You don't know the circumstance, and you see a particular data, how it relates to the guidelines, how it relates to the borrower's application, and you know that's a problem. And it's never seen that kind of problem before. So mortgages not only go through things that are known, but also things that are unknown that the technology has never seen before. And once you start trying to teach a machine how to solve unforeseen problems, that gets to be the stuff of legends. I mean, that's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. One of the things that you said earlier when we were talking was so fascinating. The reason this is so much more complicated is we're dealing with data and not components.
Not hardware.
Not hardware.
Yeah.
Because a hardware has a known failure rate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what it is when it's in the data like this. There's so many aspects of this.
Oh, yeah.
It almost gets into the next question is, what obstacles did you have to overcome to create Candor?
To make these decisions?
Yeah, to make
Well, it was the sheer complexity.
Yeah.
The number of outcomes is so huge. And then you add to that the fact that the system had to figure out things on its own. You couldn't just teach it everything and say, okay, we're done now. We can't do that.
Right.
You have to teach it how to think through a problem and how to solve things dynamically when it hasn't really seen this particular specific instance ever before. So trying to teach a machine how to solve an unforeseen problem turned out to be where most of the effort occurred in Candor, because we had to teach it how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from this billion outcomes, which you can't use traditional software methodology to solve a billion outcome problem. You can't write a spec for a billion outcomes. Cannot do it. So we had to figure out how to create a smaller population of similar problems that we could teach a machine to solve. So we did this, what we call the pivot points, what we call the anomalies, where we're teaching it to solve a particular narrowly defined kind of anomaly. Anomaly is a missed expectation. So you see in the borrower's application, he says he makes $15,000, and he says he's a wage earner. So you expect to see a pay stub with $15,000. But if you see a pay stub with $12,000, that's an anomaly. That's an unexpected event. So you have to teach a machine how to solve that particular kind of problem. So we call those anomalies. And how many anomalies are in the current Candor architecture? Over 60,000.
60,000.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, Sarah, you're not only working this aspect, but I just learned that you're Tom's daughter. So how far does the acorn fall from the tree when it comes into this same kind of analysis, understanding this?
Yes, so the acorn did not fall far from the tree. I remember having discussions about data at Thanksgiving when I was in middle school.
So that's an interesting Thanksgiving conversation. That's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I have worked on and off with my dad throughout my entire career. In fact, before data science was called data science, they didn't really teach it to you in school, but I learned it on the job with him in one of my first jobs after I got my undergraduate degree. Yeah.
Fascinating. Did you have a mortgage background?
Sort of. I started actually in consumer credit space, doing charge-off models for handling of defaulting credit lines, and then moved into analysis of data in the secondary market for mortgage. So servicing scorecard, HPA, things like that. Ended up at CoreLogic, doing data work there. Then ended up at Digital Risk, and so learning about forensic audit. But again, all of that was in the secondary space.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I have joined Candor, I have learned about what goes on in primary, which now I understand why the data was the way it was when we look at it in secondary.
So interesting. What this can do, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but what this can start doing. So, Tom, I want to get you in on Mr. Booker, get you in on this conversation. Let me get you in on this conversation. Good to have you at the table here.
Glad to be here.
Oh, I love your energy. The first time I met you, that smile that you have, it's one of those things you just feel like you're being hugged. From the moment I met you, I go, what a likable guy.
That's very nice of you to say.
What got you excited about Candor? What is it that you saw here, that the solution that Tom envisioned solving, that got your attention, that captured you?
So I'll tell us a short story. Tom reached out to me here a month ago.
Don't tell me you came out of NASA, too.
No. If I were at NASA, he would have had more work to do. No, Tom called me and told me a little bit about what he was pursuing, and I was enthralled. I had been after this kind of thinking and solution for some period of time, and we had a few conversations about it, and I said, well, let me go do my homework. Just let me go look up all the things you've done. I was on vacation on a ship. I went and looked up all this stuff on the ship with the really slow internet, and I kept getting more and more excited. And then he set up a couple more interviews with people who were on the team at that time. I came back to him, I said, Tom, I wrote him a 2-page letter about what I thought we should do. This is after one conversation. So the best way to characterize this is that he had brought into life something that I thought was not only incredibly necessary, but frankly, our markets wouldn't survive much longer without it. Because it's really important to be able to have organic truth.
That's so good. I like organic truth. That's such a great statement. But what's your background before you joined up?
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot of us say that. Oh, my God. Anyway.
I began my career in the computing business. I worked on Wall Street as a futures and options trader, option banker. I went back to work for the IBM company as a general manager in central banking. Then I went to work for Fannie Mae, First American, Collingwood Group, did some things on my own, and then found my real calling with Candor.
That's so good. I love your background, and which is really important. Now, what we were talking about when we were having, we call it the green room discussion, I learned that Tom hires based on someone's ability to learn. That was really so fascinating. And Tom, we're going to talk about the vision of this, but get into that. You said that it is really critical to you that you hire the right people, and that's true for anybody. And it's amazing how many people fail at that.
Mm-hmm. But it's hard.
Yeah. Your training and all the things you did, we don't have time to get into. I can't wait to at some point. Inspiring him to write a book, because you got to hear this man's story. It's an American dream.
There were 3 things that I try to interview for. One is problem-solving skills. Do we have people that can solve problems? And not everybody can. The second one is, are they motivated by a group goal? Do they think that they can work towards a group outcome?
Right.
Is their morality going to support that or not? And the third thing is whether or not there's somebody I like. What I've learned at NASA when I was being taught how to solve huge problems with people and technology, one of the ingredients besides problem solving and besides being able to learn and work towards a group goal is, do you like talking to these people? Because you're going to have to live with them. You're going to have to solve problems with them. And if you don't like them, it's not going to work very well.
Right.
So I learned that it was part of NASA's charm. It really was. They hired people you could like. And so here I did that. And one of the things that I've noticed about the people at Candor is that they're all lifelong learners. They try to learn. They like to approach every day as there's an opportunity to learn.
Great. That just right there is worth the whole interview, listeners. Pull that principle together. But one thing is to recognizing the need to hire learners, but how do you discern who really is the learner?
Basically, that's a gut reaction on my part. Everybody that works at Candor gets interviewed by me.
Good.
So far, it's my call.
I think that's the limbic part of your brain. You say the limbic part of the brain is such a fascinating thing because it doesn't have language. You just know when you're knower, and that's the limbic side of your brain. Mm-hmm. And it is such a fascinating, I love brain science and studying that sort of stuff. For a vocal major, I'm fascinated with some of the geekiest, crazy stuff.
No, so that's how we do it right now.
And I think that's an important anyone looking to consider you as a company, because you're not hiring the company, you're hiring the people in the company, and then you want to figure out what is it that makes them tick? What makes them unique? Why do they draw the talent that they do? How do they keep the talent that they do?
Oh, it's really simple. 2 things. They think we're doing something special. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that they know they're listened to. They know they're heard. They know that. And they also know that the things they're working on today end up in the product tomorrow, and they end up out in the marketplace by next week. If they want to see their stuff in action, we're the place.
This is also getting right into the next point we want to get into is what strategic advantages do you feel Candor has? Well, one of them is your people, the way you hire your people.
Absolutely.
And inspire it. Come on, Sarah, you talk to it.
So I got my fingers in pretty much every part of Candor and what goes on. So I get to interact with all our different teams. And I have to say, I just love them so much for so many reasons. Their ability to collaborate together, to problem solve together.
First rate.
But also to pathfind together and to...
Explain what you mean by pathfind. Dive into that.
When we're dealing with something we've never done before, like we want to go in a direction and enter a part of the market we've never been in before.
Okay.
How do we do that? What does it even look like? You have to ask questions. You have to grapple with ambiguity. You have to do research. You can't rely on your own assumptions. You have to be open to making mistakes. Our people do that, and they do it really well, and they do it together. And there's just this really great sense of team. And the other thing that I really love is everyone does feel that they are serving the greater good, and they get a tremendous amount of satisfaction out of seeing our clients served. When we get feedback about the things our clients are able to do because of us, it makes everyone incredibly happy. And so, I mean, I'm very grateful for our team. That is most definitely one of our strategic advantages.
I'd like to get your comments on this, Tom. I'm going to say your last name is Booker, so one of my favorite guys out there is Booker T. Washington. I love that man. He's what he is as a human being.
And then Booker T and the MG.
Booker
We
T.
call him Books.
You call him Books?
Because we've got a Tom, and we actually also have a Thomas.
Yes.
And so he's Books.
Oh, he's Books. So okay, so you're third Tom. There's third Tom out, so you're now Book. So let's talk about the strategic advantage. From your perspective, how would you articulate the advantage?
So I think we have a lot of strategic advantages. Depends upon perspective. I'd say from a lender or those who would consume our products, this is a thinking organization. You just heard a very articulate and cogent way of thinking about pathfinding.
Right.
I would say that's the number one thing you're going to do if you're going to solve old problems differently. You've got to be able to find new paths and be able to really circumvent what's been done previously and appreciate it. From the perspective of organizations that would invest in a company like ours, I would say that we are a company that has leverage, intellectual and human leverage, meaning we can think longer, harder, and better about it, and we will have more people who know how to do it.
Interesting.
That's how I would characterize that.
That is a strategic advantage. That's really, really good. Folks, we have these specific questions I want to get to, but I could go down so many that each one of these questions has a whole chapter of a book written about it. But I want to look at now, how does your newly issued patent play into the strategic advantage you're doing? First of all, writing a patent in this thing is not easy. You're dealing with something that is so...
It takes 4 years and $250,000. Sure.
Wow. But you said that you also did this. Maybe this was the intelligence of NASA behind you, but you planned it out so well, they only had to take one change. There only one iteration on that.
Very fortunate. We were very
That
fortunate.
in itself is amazing.
Well, we've had a number of, I don't want to call it good luck, but we started off with a certain product market configuration, what we're going to take to market and why it was a good idea. And it so happens when we got to market with that, we found out it was, what do you think, books, a 90% fit? Something like that. From out of the lab to the market, a huge percentage fit. That's unusual. Most of the time from the lab to the market, what do you think, books, 60, 65, 70% fit best? Whatever.
That's fair.
We did better than that, so that helped us. The original technical configuration that ended up in the patent has been preserved. So we've been able to have that preserved for 4 years and God knows how many ups and downs. But we've been very fortunate in that the original technological vision and the original product market vision have held up reasonably well.
Well, just the fact what that does for the value of your company and the investors got to be smiling. The fact that you've been able to do that got to give you a big chuckle out of that. Books, come on.
Yeah, yes, it did. The reason the big chuckle is that it's a common theme across the company. It's one thing to hear the CEO talk about it, but you would hear other people in our company quote that.
Wow.
And part of it's because he's interviewed all of them, but part of it's because he talks to all of them every week.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's another thing. So it's sustained engagement.
Talk about your management style, because I think the uniqueness, there's a product uniqueness, and certainly you have that. The way you're solving the problems is unique. But at the end of the day, it's the people.
It is.
It's the sustained path of any company, the sustained trajectory. Some aerospace talk. Sustained trajectory is how it is run day to day. How is it that you have time to take the time to talk to everyone? And how do you go about that?
We make the time.
Yeah.
Make the time. It's a priority.
The other thing, though, is because everyone talks to him before they join, I also believe the management style, not just of Tom, but of everyone within our organization, I think there's a comfort level with communicating. And here's the other thing. No one in the company gets upset about bad news. What everyone gets upset about is inaccurate information. So it's much more important to share something early than to hide it because you want to save face. So we have this environment where, hey, we're going to experiment, we're going to try something, and it might not work. But we need to learn from how it didn't work. And that's the culture. And so it's very easy to get a message from people making the product or people in the field with our clients up to Tom and everyone else because of that culture.
I'm going to ask you a question that's not on this list. How does the competition drive you? Do you feel, some would say threatened, that only the paranoid survive is what Andy Grove wrote the famous book on, Only the Paranoid Survive?
So that's true. I mean, competitors are the way you true up in the marketplace. They are the folks that actually police your value proposition as well as your customers. And we, like every other company, are listening closely, but we're also discerning. So what's the difference between listening and discerning? Not just listening, but we're doing our own research. We're doing our own research to figure out what they just told us and what they didn't tell us.
I like that, Bugs.
It's a focus. It goes back to this pathfinding. It's a similar priority.
But some would say, well, you've got a patent. Once you have the patent, who can threaten you?
Everybody can still threaten you.
That's the right attitude. Yeah.
But it's not even just about the competition. For one thing, competition helps us reevaluate ourselves. And so that's continually happening. We have so much more value we can deliver. Even if no one ever catches up to us, we have a lot of places we want to go.
Yeah. So the vision, you can feel people nipping at your heels, but it's really the vision of what you can accomplish, which is so much more exciting. Working towards someone that you're excited in the direction you're going is so much more exciting and motivating than the fear of someone overtaking you.
Absolutely. You make better decisions when you're thinking about the value you can create and the opportunity rather than the fear of demise.
One more thing about the patent. Because this is a 100% machine intelligence solution, that's why it was patentable. Our competition has a man-machine solution where they have men or women adding the intelligence along with the machine. So it's not patentable because it's not patentable subject matter. So one of the differentiators about the patent is if you have a human making the decisions in your system, it's not a patentable system. So the patent is really a true differentiator for people that are truly trying to sound like and be like a 100% machine solution. And because we are a 100% machine solution, that means our process, our technology, our decision making is portable. We can put it anywhere. So besides in fulfillment, where we started off, it goes in backwards towards the investor in the post-close and the due diligence environments, and it goes forward in the point of sale and direct to the consumer. It could be there in all those places, and the technology performs extremely well.
Yeah, and want to get into all of how and why about that, but that touches on an important question, which is what are the beneficial outcomes that Candor clients have already enjoyed?
Sure.
Well, I know this sounds like there's more to come. What have you already done for your clients?
Well, first, we set on a 3-year journey to reduce repurchase exposure.
Very important.
Typical exposures,
Especially in markets like this, where in markets like this is when all the previous mistakes come out and the time we can least afford them.
oh, absolutely. And of course, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So the repurchase exposure when we started the insurance program was gauged at 12 basis points. They wanted to price our insurance at roughly $138 a load, but we couldn't sell our product with an insurance wrapper that pricey.
Right.
So I went to the underwriter and I said, basically, we think we have a better mousetrap. We think we can take that exposure from 12 basis points to down to 1.
Wow.
And they looked at me like,
You got a third eye.
well, these folks were across the pond, and they were like, okay, the Yanks on something. To their credit, and they've done other deals with me in the past, so having a pattern of truth and intelligence has been helpful.
Right.
Because they listened and they believed. So they believed that we had a better solution. They believed that Candor could actually, in real time, identify and resolve defects, and it was going to do it better than anybody else. They reduced their price substantially. So they took a risk with us when we didn't have the data to prove it. They just basically, based upon the quality of what we were saying and the quality of our thinking, they took a risk with us, which is unbelievable.
Yeah. You have an insurance company making an adjustment like that?
Oh.
Without empirical data? That's pretty significant. For an asset scientist, it sounds like you're a pretty good salesman.
I ain't bad.
You could do that. But, Sarah, do you want to add to that? And then I'll come over to you, Books.
Well, he was right, and so
That helps.
they are actually really happy with how it turned out.
2 million underwrites now and 0 repurchases.
0 repurchases, and they're getting an insurance fee with almost 0 risk. That's insurance treat. Folks, you want to add to that?
The only thing I would add is that record has allowed us more opportunities to expand what we do into more use cases where we can actually insure those as well. Our first again in this industry.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the good gift keeps giving.
That's so amazing. This is also exciting, but let's start getting into some exciting things that you have on the roadmap. Can you give us a little insight? You teased us a little bit. Oh, yeah, more patents are coming.
Well, I mean, Sarah's taking our product to the post-close QC and the due diligence markets.
Yeah. Huge from a securitization standpoint.
Oh,
Yes, and there's so much fertile ground there, and we could talk for hours about what could be done.
Yeah.
and Books is taking it in the point-of-sale space to bring it earlier in the life cycle with the consumer, where I think they'll benefit immensely from having a powerful, accurate, and authentic underwrite right up front.
Right. So one is looking at it from a standpoint, the rearview mirror, woulda, coulda, shouldas. And Books, what you're talking about is taking us as, let's solve that problem by getting this thing viewed from the beginning. Talk about that, Books.
No, the point of sale is where everything begins in the mortgage business. And for far too long, it's been very difficult to make the point of sale really meaningful to both the lender and the borrower, both in different ways. The borrower wants to get a loan quickly. The lender wants to have high degrees of commitment quickly.
Right.
Those don't happen very quickly. We've figured out a way how to do both.
That's interesting.
We're at the point of sale.
Now, someone might say, but is this going to eliminate jobs? Is this creating a disadvantage? I mean, some people might take that and start going down a negative path.
No, I think it would be exactly the opposite.
More inclusion, I see.
Not only more inclusion, but if you think about how many difficult loans don't get considered because they take too much time and too much energy, they're too complex. And this isn't just underserved populations. It could be difficult to serve populations. People who have complex financial circumstances find it difficult to utilize the mortgage markets. Having a tool that can interrogate those files and make judgments that are well-reasoned, systemic and quick. It's just a huge tool for everybody.
This could shorten the time it takes from going from application or consideration to close, number one, and then what goes into a securitization, to your point, Sarah.
The two really mesh together quite well because the sooner you know with great certainty what kind of a loan this is going to be and if it can be made, the sooner you can tell the secondary market about it. And so you start to collapse the space from both ends.
Yes. Very exciting.
It's fascinating.
If you think about what we just discussed, it's beginning to make the mortgage transaction that had more of a commercial product feel with the closing look more like a consumer transaction. It happens very quickly, has very clearly defined requirements, and happens with some predictability.
I can go buy a Tesla X and walk out in a matter of an hour on a depreciating asset. Theory, some would say it's an appreciating.
Depreciating is good.
It's a depreciating asset.
Depreciating is very good.
And some would say it's not even considered an asset when you really look at something.
It's worth less in a year.
For certainly. And what you guys are doing is creating on an appreciating asset, basically what could be something very compressed.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
Higher quality, lower costs.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tom, at this particular time in the recording and where we're at in our industry, and I just came from the economic, we're here at the MBA in Nashville, 2022, and I listened to the economic forecast and how many we're not cutting. Marina Walsh was talking about performance and how companies are not getting to the right size fast enough. And the rate of the loss,
They're huge.
the volume is falling faster than they're cutting.
Oh, huge loss.
Now, this comes in as a solution on how to right-size a company. That's one of the statements you have made to me earlier.
Well, we see it a little more emphatically. We say right size for the last time.
Wow.
So what we're saying is that Candor has the technology so that you could anticipate the lowest volume of loans you could imagine. All right, staff for that extremely low volume, which is lower than today. Keep your best people, turn the overage to Candor.
Yeah. So that almost opens up the question of who becomes your best people.
That's the lender to decide.
That's really good.
I will say what our technology does, it's not just a widget you add on to an existing process. It allows you to completely rearrange and rethink your existing process and even your business model. So what we have seen lenders do is they don't necessarily come in and like, okay, we're going to make big cuts. Instead, it's like, oh, now we can specialize people. We can have them focus, or we can create new roles within the organization, quality-focused roles that didn't happen before. They repurpose people, they put them in different positions, and then they come out with this operation that's much more efficient, higher quality, which doesn't cost any more.
Dynamic and productive as well.
Yes. So it really is a tool they can be creative with.
What I love about that, I'm all about company culture. I think one of the things I'm most passionate about is if we can get everyone focused. James Collins talks about in the Good to Great book, get the right people on the bus, right people off the bus, and the ones that are on the bus, get them on the right seats.
Yes.
This sounds like this is a tool which allows you to start working in the area of where your greatest skill is, which is oftentimes your greatest interest, therefore your greatest joy. So I could see how this could.
For example, today, 80% of the effort in a mortgage company goes to making the loan. And crossing all the T's.
And 80% of the cost.
Crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and coping with this massive amount of detail, which Candor now manages for you in many instances.
Wow.
So now you not only let the technology dot the I's and cross the T's, but it also writes the sentence, and your job is just to interpret what the sentence means if you like it or not. So what you can do then is start repurposing your people to do higher value jobs that you couldn't get to before because you had so much of your effort and cost absorbed in just managing the detail, crossing the T's, dotting the I's. And so we are seeing our customers start to report that. And we're also seeing our customers start to report that they now have a new business model where they can now go and serve particular segments of the market, like with a seamless cash offer, that they could never do that before. And so now that they are able to reinvent their business model, given that they have a new economic rhythm, it's really enriching for them.
Yeah.
It's better for the consumer. The consumer's going to get served far better with that new business model than the old one. And it's also good for us because we get to enable the kinds of productive change that we really need to get behind.
I just realized we're recording this at Union Station in Nashville, and there's locomotives going on in the background. I'm going, this is actually a pretty good metaphor.
It's so authentic.
Well, not only that, I'm sensing metaphorically, Candor is the locomotive that is just going to be just
Thank you.
bringing so much potential change and need to change to our industry. This is so exciting. I'm just honored to get to sit with the three of you. I'm going to go around backwards. So, Books, I just want to say what a great pleasure to meet you. To just have your input here.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you. Your enthusiasm is absolutely electric. It's made me think about this business a little more actively with the trains and everything else going on, but thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. I've been 49 years in the industry. I'm a DE underwriter. I was a top salesperson in the industry. I mean, I've done everything here. And what I want to do is give back to an industry that has been very, very good to me. But I think it's also one of the things I get so excited about housing is I think it's the most transformative thing you can have go on here in your life. And I think when you start realizing if we can do it more responsibly, which means that we can do it more predictably with a greater outcome, it works all the way from the borrower.
For the second largest capital market in the world.
Yeah, exactly right. That's so interesting.
Yes, it's the most transformative thing in a person's life, and it is the second largest capital market. So the implications to change the everyday life of people all the way up to the entire economy of our country and even the world.
So exciting. You summed that up so well. We got to do this again. This is just beyond fun here. Thank you so much. Sarah, so nice to meet you.
Great to meet you. I can't wait to do this again.
I can't wait. And then know what the surprise was to know that Tom is your dad.
Yeah.
And then to meet Books again here. I mean, just so much fun. I'm just really excited about this. Hey, listeners, there's a lot of things we covered here. It's the company, it's the people, it's the process that they're going into and they're applying to this. You have got to look at the bigger picture. Well, it costs this much and it's this. It is so much more than that. You must look at the vision, listeners. Share this interview with those that need to hear it inside your company and within the industry. Thanks, listeners, for being here. Thank you, Candor.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update with your host David Lykken of Transformational Mortgage Solutions. Join us next week, and thanks for listening.